Good morning, everyone. I'm Daryl Steinberg. I'm the state senator who represents Sacramento and Edward Kemble Elementary School. And I'm also the president pro tem of the California State Senate. And I want to thank the principal, Shana Henry, for opening up your fine school to us here today. I want to welcome all the children, because everything we do downtown in the Capitol should be, and it usually is, about you guys. I want to also thank parent Keone Cochran, who will speak in a few moments, Cameron Cochran, one of our third grade students, Catherine Lehman, public counsel, and Mark Rosenbaum from the ACLU, who have done some very, very important work around the subject that I want to talk about here today. This school, Edward Kemble Elementary, is fortunate to have a team of very talented and dedicated teachers and administrators. These kids that are standing before me here today and their aspirations for the future are the reason why we are here today. In the midst of a global economic recession, we have all had to make extraordinary sacrifices to make ends meet. But as you look into the faces of all these children, third graders, it's a reminder that we need to do even more to protect the innocent from the harshest consequences of our fiscal challenges. We know from study after study that our kids need to have a consistent quality teacher in the classroom in order to succeed. But as a state, I think, in many ways, we are failing you, and we are failing them. Throughout California, over the last 2 years, thousands of teachers have lost their jobs. But we also know that the consequences of these layoffs are not distributed equally among the schools. In Sacramento City Unified, for example, 28 schools had no teachers receive final layoff notices this spring. 9 schools, by contrast, had more than 15% of the faculty laid off, and 3 schools lost more than 30%, nearly 1 out of 3 of their teachers. And here at Kemble, 8 teachers, representing 1/3 of all of the teachers, received final layoff notices last month. This is unacceptable, and I believe violates the United States and California Constitution, specifically that part of the Constitution which says that every child is entitled to equal protection under the law. The loss of adults on campus has real long-term consequences for you guys. Larger class sizes, long-term substitutes while districts shuffle remaining staff, disruption of teaching teams, less art, less music, fewer librarians, and less science instruction. It's obvious to me that the best way to solve this problem is to adequately fund our schools. And that's why I'm going to fight in the state capitol this year, as we did last year, as we do every year, to gain the revenue, the money that we need to make sure that schools don't have to lay off any teachers, period, because that's the real answer. But the truth of the matter is that our challenging economic times are not over. There are still some rough roads ahead. The economy's not coming back as fast as we would all like it to be. And so we may have to deal with this kind of situation for the next several years. And I want to make it clear, because sometimes in the Capitol this gets posed as a management versus union fight. And it really isn't. This is not a management versus union fight. In fact, I wrote an article in the Sacramento Bee this weekend in which I made it very clear that this isn't about collective bargaining or the union standing in the way. I don't see it that way at all. The law already gives the district management a lot of power and a lot of authority to decide that some group of teachers, based on their special training, for example, don't have to be laid off when there is a large layoff. What my bill seeks to do is to clarify and, yes, expand the law to say that if teachers are specifically recruited and retained to teach in schools in some lower income areas of our city and of our state, that a district should have the right to make that a category not subject to layoffs as well. So let me be specific. I'm introducing legislation to do the following. Again, to clarify that existing law requires school districts implement layoffs in a manner that avoids disparate impacts in order to protect our kids' constitutional right to a quality education. 2, require that rates of teacher layoffs in the higher poverty schools, what we call deciles 1 to 3, be no greater than the district average. Require that superintendents, when hiring new teachers, assign them in a way that achieves greater balance of experience across schools. And finally, we're going to go back to Washington, D.C., even in these hard economic times, and we're going to pursue tens of millions of federal dollars to provide support and training for teachers in struggling schools. Now, this proposal may be controversial, but to me it is sound. It gives districts stronger tools to manage layoffs to protect the students who most need stable schools. That protection may make struggling schools more appealing assignments for teachers because they know that if they come here, that they're not going to be laid off within a year or 2 years when times get tough. And requiring teacher assignments that improve the balance of experience will bring a better mix of expertise to schools, not only here, but throughout our state. Schools that too often have been revolving doors for beginning teachers. So I can explain more of this, and of course will, upon questioning, and I'd invite all you kids especially down to Sacramento and the Capitol when my idea is heard before the Assembly Education Committee, and let the legislators hear your voice too, because you're the ones that matter. Let me ask Ms. Victoria Carr, a third grade teacher who unfortunately was one of the 8 teachers that received a final pink slip from Edward Kemble. Welcome to you, and thank you for coming forward. Appreciate it.
Hello. First off, I would like to thank Dr. Henry for selecting me to speak, and I would especially like to thank Senator Steinberg for bringing this spotlight to this issue. Whether it was Miss Bautista in kindergarten who began my education, or Miss Blumquist senior year who helped me reach my potential as I was leaving high school, each of my teachers has touched my life in a different way. I stand before you today, a pink slip teacher for the 3rd year in a row. I'm no less determined to pursue my passion of helping children than I was when I began this journey. When I entered college, my mom saw an ad for the START program. We thought this would be a great way to gain insight into the education profession. What I didn't know was that my mom wanted me to see how challenging it would be to work in an underprivileged area. What she didn't know was that this experience would light a fire inside of me to try to make a difference, and even more so when my 6th grade student said, "Thanks to Miss Victoria, I now know I can go to college." As teachers, we have the privilege of not just teaching, but inspiring and directing and encouraging. We go through credential programs such as UTEC, Urban Teacher Education Center, and BMed, Bilingual Multicultural Education, in order to better serve this community and others like it. Many of us continue by also obtaining our masters. We work long hours, we buy our own supplies, we come together as teams to provide more support for our students, and we meet with parents before and after school to address students' needs. Our reward from the district and the state, pink slips. But for those who love the children and what we do, we will wait and hope that the priorities will be made for the children and their future by keeping teachers who have passion in the classroom. In the meantime, this pink slip teacher will go back to her wonderful class of 3rd graders, and we finish our journey together.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think that makes the case better than any statement from me. Thank you very much, Ms. Carr, for not only your statement, but for sticking with it, all right, and not giving up. Let me ask Keone Cochran and Cameron Cochran, a mother and, where's Cameron? We may need to. Okay, come on over here. to come on up together. Now, Cameron informed me that he wants to be a basketball player, and his favorite player is Kobe Bryant, which I have to take issue with myself. But you're welcome to come and say a few words. Go ahead.
Okay. I think it is wrong to let all the teachers go because they are great teachers. I think it is wrong to let all the teachers go because they are great teachers. For example, Miss Carr is a wonderful teacher and she won't be here next year. We all want to see her in the gate next year when we return to school. She is nice and she has helped us really understand math in a good way. She has helped us with a lot of stuff. I feel mad. I feel mad because kids like me have to miss out on good teachers because of a layoff. The government should change so that good teachers like Miss Carr can stay.
It's gonna make me cry. The situation, it means a lot, not just to the school and to the teachers to stay, but it also means a lot to the students, and also me being a parent here and volunteering on campus at almost every school my kids have been to, and seeing how much the students really value the teachers, just to see that that it's not seen like it's important enough to keep them, especially good, valuable teachers, and not just speaking just for Edward Kimball, but other schools. But this is a school site where there's a lot of teachers who I see treat my children with respect. They help them. They value the student, not just as, a paycheck, but as, that they're someone that they actually want to contribute to the future success and progress. And not only that, to me, the teachers are the best asset to the school in addition to the students. And removing them, to me, should definitely be the last option. Also, it not only just affects the schools, but it affects the community when there's schools that don't have enough teachers. Because I've seen from a junior high level, my oldest is in junior high, that students don't go to school. They'll ditch school because there's no teachers. We have a substitute today. And then, my kids will come home too and they'll say, we had a substitute, and it's kind of hard to learn from a substitute if there's no teachers on campus. And this is just since previous schools that I've been at as well. And I just wanted to say that, most importantly, how will the state expect the schools to continue with the consistency levels if we keep removing the different teachers, having to have the staff, the parents, and me, a parent as well, get used to new teachers every year? It's just not good for me. The change, it's a difficult thing to process, especially when kids get used to a certain standard that's being set. But if the standards keep changing consistently over and over, rather than progressing from school to school, but within the school, how do we expect them to meet their same successful goal levels that we keep setting and imposing on them year in and year out? So I just hope that what the Senator's doing will make a change. And that's all I have to say.
Got it. From the heart. It's a great thing to let people know how you feel. Cameron. What's your name? What's that? Tiara? So I was talking to Tiara right before this started, and she told me that she wanted to be a lawyer. And that is great, because you know what? Lawyers themselves, kind of like politicians, sometimes, people don't think all that highly of us. But the fact of the matter is that lawyers out there, most lawyers, and especially these two lawyers I'm about to introduce, are doing great things to help people, because lawyers help change the law too. So I want to introduce you to Catherine Lehman and Mark Rosenbaum, who have both filed a lawsuit in Los Angeles that speaks to these very issues that I am raising here in my bill today. So I want you to hear from them about what this bill means, not only for kids in Sacramento, but throughout the state of California. You're very welcome.
Thanks.
I'm Catherine Lehman. I'm Director of Impact Litigation at Public Counsel Law Center in Los Angeles. And I and Mark Rosenbaum are counsel for the student plaintiffs in Reed versus State of California, which challenges the constitutionality of disproportionate teacher layoffs at schools heavily populated with low-income students and students of color. I am delighted to stand with Senator Steinberg to applaud his introduction of Senate Bill 1285, which would catapult this state out of the bad old days of separate and unequal educational opportunity into a future that's the 21st century, in which we do value every student as an important learner, and we treat all kids as the valuable members of our community that they are. This bill would give this state practical tools immediately to ensure all kids equal educational opportunity, even in uncertain and difficult budgetary times. This bill gives us the tools that we need to keep us from expensive and inefficient litigation, to protect kids' rights to learn, and will give us what we need to be able to ensure that all of these kids here in this room and all over the state are able to realize their dreams in school. I applaud the senator, and I hope very much that this state can see this bill made law so that we can stop the separate and unequal educational opportunity that we have seen in the last 2 difficult budget years. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I'm Mark Rosenbaum. I'm Chief Counsel of the ACLU of Southern California, and like Catherine Lehman, I want to tell you how proud the ACLU of Southern California is to stand with Senator Steinberg in support of SB 1285, a bill that will begin to restore equal educational opportunity for all children. You know, in California, the 3 R's of reading, writing, and arithmetic are being replaced by recession, recession, and recession. And the result is that adults who could not take care of their business are making children cry by removing the most valuable asset that government has for its children, and that is the quality teacher in the classroom. There's something wrong, and we see it everywhere we go, where adults are making the innocent pay for their mistakes and for their errors. And for schools here in Sacramento that are threatened with the loss of up to 1/3 of their teachers, like the schools in Los Angeles where Catherine and I filed suit, where up to 3/4 of the teachers received pink slips because of budget errors and budget mistakes by adults. The failure there is to punish children. The innovation and the genius of Senator Steinberg's bill is not only that it says that when layoffs have to happen, they should not be borne on the backs, in the backpacks of young children, particularly young children in communities of low-income families and children of color, but it provides new resources that will distribute quality and experienced teachers to all schools so that there not be disproportionate impact. Senator Steinberg, on behalf of the ACLU, but I think really on behalf of all citizens of California, including our most precious resource, the children of California, we want to thank you for this measure and hope that all adults in the legislature will support it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mark and Catherine. I'd be happy to stand for questions, and I have, again, the experts with me as well. Any questions? I should take first I should take questions from the kids here, you know. They're the important ones. Any questions? Any questions from the adults?
Well, I don't know if I'm an adult. But
Go ahead, yes. Why do teachers get laid off is the question. Well, I think that California is at a bit of a crossroads here. And I believe that we need more resources, more money for public education in this state. I believe that very, very strongly. That as we've cut budget after budget in this state, that education continues to struggle and have a hard time. And so money is a big part of it, but it's not the only thing. We need to make sure that we also look at some of our laws, and that and that school districts have the opportunity and ability to say, you know, in some schools that maybe have struggled over time, where there's a new effort and a lot of energy to try to make that school great, that when there have to be layoffs, that those schools and those teachers get to stay where they're at, so that you guys can continue to grow and get the education that you deserve. So money's a lot of it, I think, but it's not everything. And that's why I'm introducing this law.
Senator, what guidance are you giving school districts to make their layoff decisions?
Well, again, I want to be real clear on this, because the frame in the Capitol is the union versus the management. That is not this issue. Under the Education Code, the management already has some discretion. I would describe it as unclear discretion, to be able to categorize a group of teachers and say, when there are layoffs based on for economic reasons, that those teachers will not be subject to layoff. For example, special education is a clear category that districts can now, and often do, set aside to be skipped when there is a layoff. What this bill does is take the next logical step, in my view, which is to say that if teachers are recruited, specifically recruited to teach in schools that have had a history of struggle, and the teachers receive training to be able to teach in those schools, that the districts ought to have the discretion and the ability to make the civil rights of kids a category, like special ed teachers, like teachers with special credentials. Now, to make sure that we can put some meat on those bones and to enforce that, we also say that when a district has to do a layoff, that the schools in the lowest 3 deciles can't have a layoff percentage any greater than the average of the whole state. Because even with giving districts the ability to consider civil rights as a criteria in determining layoff, that's optional for them. So we want to make sure that there's an incentive to actually focus on the civil rights of kids by saying you have to make sure that your layoff plan is no greater for the lowest 3 deciles than it is for the entire district.
Barring that unclear discretion, is the current layoff system seniority for the most part?
The current layoff system is largely seniority, but there are exceptions within the Education Code that I just described that allow districts to, again, take a category of teachers based on credential, based on subject matter expertise, and to set that aside and to exempt that category from layoffs. We seek to add the civil rights of kids to that list. Sure, Jenny. Correct.
So this is sort of the overall guidelines governing that?
That's right. Now, what we have found is that the subject of layoffs are really not part of the contracts. That they are largely determined by Board of Education rule. And some districts and boards have rules that, again, provide these exemptions from layoffs for specific categories of teachers, like special ed teachers or teachers with special credentials. So we now want to authorize the boards to add to that list teachers who are specifically recruited and need to be retained to teach in lower income schools where there are predominantly kids of color. That's civil rights. It gets right to the essence of civil rights. Right.
to gauge which
Test scores.
test scores,
Yeah.
to gauge
Right.
which teachers were laid off. Where do you come in on this?
Well, you notice that I do not include that most controversial provision in my bill, and I'm sure the result of that is that both sides, those who oppose that and those who favor it, those who oppose this whole concept and those who favor using test scores, probably none of them will love the measure. I hope that they look at it carefully and in the end embrace this as a common sense step here. I hope, and I think we should work over the course of the next year or 14 months to develop a more robust evaluation tool or set of tools for teachers. I think that's great. But I didn't put it in my bill here, and I opposed the bill that had it. It's known as SB 955, because nobody that I know of has developed yet the tool that has the buy-in of the principals and the teachers and the parents and the others. And in fact, a number of districts are applying to the federal government right now for more money. And what they are suggesting in their applications, working with Governor Schwarzenegger and his administration, is that they take up to 14 months to look at the best research around the country, to work with teachers, to work with administrators, to work with parents, and to develop a tool, an evaluation tool that everyone can kind of get behind. So in the long run, I would like to see evaluation, performance be a part of the outline that I'm laying out here. But I didn't put it in the bill because I don't think I cannot with any confidence at this point say that California or any state in the country has developed a tool which everyone is confident is fair and has the buy-in and input from all of the stakeholders in the education community. Does that make sense? Okay.
So these teachers who are being recruited, who are they? More experienced? Been in the system longer?
Well, you want to come on up? I think you ought to hear from the principal here. Who are the, not by name necessarily, we did hear from one teacher here, but who are the kind of teachers that you're recruiting, and tell us about, we do not want to embarrass Ms. Carr here, but tell us a little bit about Ms. Carr, who was the teacher who received the pink slip, how you recruited her and what she's like.
Oh, I'm a little on the spot here.
Yeah.
Well, what we look for at Edward Kimball is someone that is willing to do the work that we need to do at our school. Not every school is the same. So we've been working a lot on serving our children, working to eliminate the achievement gap here at our school. So we look for teachers that are doing professional development, building their capacity in that area, and specifically want to work through that. Ms. Carr is exactly that type of teacher. Passionate, committed, knows that she wants to serve our kids, doesn't want just a job, but wants to work at Edward Kimball. So she's that type of teacher, and that's the type of teacher we want at our school. In terms of recruitment, this last year, Ms. Carr came to us through what's called a surplus process, where we had vacancies open, and because of the large amount of pink slips last year, teachers were called back because they were eligible for a job and they were able to pick a school. Ms. Carr heard about our school and decided this was the place to be. So that's how we arrived with getting Ms. Carr, and we're fortunate that we have her, and we don't want to lose her because it's very unlikely that in that process we do get a match that works so well, and in this case it did.
So in addition to all those elements, is it a matter of a level of time teaching that you look for as well? Is it somebody who has been teaching for a while?
Me personally, no. I could talk about a few first-year teachers that are just as great as someone who's been teaching 20 years. It's about the passion and commitment, and that's why I'm so supportive of this type of legislation that really looks at all teachers and not just based on the levels of years that you've taught.
As a principal, do you have any voice at all in terms of how these decisions over layoffs get made, or do they just come down from the Board of Ed?
in my 5 years here, I've not been part of the decision-making process.
So every year, just the teachers get their notices directly from the district without any.
Correct.
How much time are you able to spend in classrooms that you report to the higher ups in the district?
Well, we have a large school site, so I try to do the best that I can. I probably am in classrooms maybe, I try to be 2 to 3 times a week for maybe 20, 30 minutes or so.
Each classroom.
Each classroom.
For a given teacher, how many times? I'm sorry. For a given
Please.
For a given teacher, how many times are you able to spend time in that classroom during the course of a year for a given teacher?
It's going to be a small amount, probably I'd say 3 to 4 hours total. It can range anywhere from there to maybe 6 hours tops total for the year.
The whole year.